My parents spent my wedding fund on my twin sister, then made a selfish demand, so I cut them off. My parents always made it clear that my twin sister was their favorite. They even went so far as to spend my wedding fund on her. That was the breaking point for me. I cut them off completely after refusing to entertain my mother's selfish request. I am 23 years old, and I have a twin sister, Allison. We are not on speaking terms, and neither am I with my parents. There was a time when we still exchanged words, despite everything I had endured growing up, but for the past 2 years, I have kept my distance. They never reached out either, until now. Allison is 12 minutes older than me, and because of that, she was automatically deemed the golden child. My parents only ever planned on having one kid. They were not financially prepared for twins, but by the time they found out, it was too late. My mother did not want to take any risks, so they had both of us, even though they only ever really wanted one. I learned the truth during high school when my drunk uncle let it slip during a Thanksgiving gathering. That was the day I stopped trying to earn my parents' approval. They had made their choice a long time ago. One child would be loved, and the other would be tolerated. Allison got their love. I did not. Growing up, our sibling rivalry was relentless. Anything she did, I tried to do better, thinking maybe then my parents would notice me. Instead, they resented me more for outshining their favorite. The thing is, Allison never really cared about competing with me. She just wanted validation. She played the part of the wounded sibling well, pretending to be upset whenever I excelled at something. And people bought it. My parents, our relatives, even some classmates. Everyone rushed to comfort her and scolded me for making her feel bad. So what did I get out of it? Good grades, countless extracurriculars, and a work ethic that would take me far. And what did Allison get? Attention, sympathy, and the unwavering support of our parents. Looking back, I do not regret it, but I would not mind rubbing it in her face now. 2 years ago, we turned 21. By then, we had both graduated. Allison finished at a regular college, but I graduated from one of the top business schools in the state. Not only that, but I was valedictorian and attended on a scholarship, which saved my parents a significant amount of money. I thought maybe this time they would be proud of me. They were not. Their only concern was Allison and her future because she had barely managed to get through college. At the time, we were both living at home. I was already working remotely as an intern at a well-known firm, while Allison was struggling to find a job, facing rejection after rejection. My parents cared about her struggles, but did not acknowledge my accomplishments. It did not surprise me, but it still hurt. I kept quiet, telling myself it was temporary. But after our 21st birthday, I had enough. I expected a celebration, something that recognized both of us. The day before, I woke up to find the house empty. They had left me a note. It said they were heading to the beach with Allison and her friends for a few days. That was it. No invitation for me. No explanation. Just a $50 gift card and a half-hearted happy birthday. That was the moment I decided I was done. I packed my things and left that same day. A few friends were willing to let me crash at their place until I could get my own. I knew it would not take long. The firm I was interning at had already hinted they would hire me after my internship. I moved in with a friend without telling my parents or Allison. They did not bother to check on me, either. They called on my birthday, the day after I moved out, not to wish me a happy birthday. They wanted me to call a plumber because the tap was leaking. I told them I did not live there anymore. I expected some kind of reaction, but they were unfazed. My parents accepted it without question, and Allison did not care. That was the last real conversation I ever had with them. Since then, I have not seen them, nor have they reached out. Occasionally, I heard bits and pieces about Allison through mutual friends, but that was the extent of my connection to them. I focused on my career, saved up, and got my own place. It is not extravagant, but it is a nice apartment in a good neighborhood, and I can afford it. For someone my age, that is more than enough. I am proud of how far I have come. I knew Allison got married a couple of months ago. Her husband is nearly 10 years older than her, a businessman, and they now live in California. As far as I knew, everything was fine with my parents until 2 days ago when my uncle called. He told me to come immediately. My parents had been in a bad car accident and wanted to see me. I went, of course. I'm not heartless. When I got there, I found out they had been in the hospital for a couple of days, recovering from serious injuries. A truck had hit their car. They survived, but had no health insurance. My father never believed in it. He thought if we just took care of ourselves, we would never need a hospital. One of the dumbest things I have ever heard. They called Allison first. She refused to come. She also refused to help financially. She did not want her new husband to think she was a gold digger. Flying back home was also out of the question because, as she put it, she could not abandon her home and her 2 kids that were not even hers. They were from her husband's previous marriage, but she was too busy playing house to care about our parents. Not that it would have made a difference. If her husband did not support her, she would not even be able to afford the plane ticket. She is just a stay-at-home mom now, taking care of someone else's children. So much for being the golden child. I cannot believe they had not even bothered to call me first. But what made it even worse was when my uncle told me that my parents expected me to pay for their medical bills. The amount was no small sum. It would take a long time for me to recover financially if I covered it. And honestly, I had no desire to spend my hard-earned money on people who had never cared about me or shown me an ounce of real love. They had other family members they could turn to. Even if I refused, someone else would step up. But they wanted me to do it because it would be less humiliating for them. If they borrowed from someone else, they would be expected to pay it back quickly, whereas with me, they could drag it out as long as they wanted. That was their reasoning when they asked for my help. They even assured me I would be reimbursed in no time. So now, I was stuck between 2 choices. Refuse, let them deal with their own mess and prioritize myself, or give in, lose my savings, and wait around, hoping they would actually pay me back. If I was being completely honest, I had no interest in helping them. We had not spoken in 2 years, and even before that, they treated me like an afterthought. At this point, they were no different from strangers to me. But if I refused, did that make me just as bad as Allison? I hated that thought. Was I wrong for not wanting to pay for my parents' medical bills after their accident? Update 1. I made my decision. I was not going to help them. It was not an easy choice, but deep down, I knew they would find a way to cover their bills. They had asked me because they were too proud to ask anyone else. I have not told them yet, though. I mean, how do you tell your own family that you're refusing to help them after a life-threatening accident? It has been 5 days since I last saw them. After reading a lot of opinions, I came to a realization. I was still stuck in competition with Allison. She refused to help, so I felt like I had to step up, as if proving I was the better daughter would mean something. No matter how much I try to let go of it, that competitive instinct is still part of me. A lot of people pointed out how foolish it was for my parents to never get health insurance, and I completely agreed. If I had still been in their lives, I would have made sure my father got coverage. But he always believed he did not need it. He even refused to get car insurance because he thought he was too skilled a driver to ever have an accident. They were lucky the truck driver was at fault. If not, they would have been responsible for the car repairs too. As for their financial situation, which many people asked about, my parents are not broke. They're not rich either, but they are comfortable. My father is the sales head at his company, and my mother works in human resources at a small firm. They earn enough, and since neither Allison nor I rely on them anymore, their expenses are lower than they used to be. Growing up, we were not poor, but we were not well off either. We were just somewhere in the middle. That has not changed. So why are they unable to pay their own bills? If they can borrow money and promise to return it, why not just pay it directly? They have not given me an explanation, and honestly, I doubt they ever will. Update 2. I finally told my parents I was not going to pay their bills. They have been calling me all week. I knew I could not just ignore them forever. So yesterday, I picked up the phone and told them straight. I had thought it over, and I did not feel any obligation to help them. They did not take it well. My mother, despite her broken ribs, screamed at me as loudly as she could. She called me ungrateful and a disappointment. My father was quieter, but his words were just as sharp. He simply told me I was no longer their daughter and hung up after my mother was done ranting. But you know what? It did not hurt the way I expected it to. In my heart, I had stopped being their daughter a long time ago. I cannot even remember the last time I felt any warmth from them. They had ignored me for 2 years just because I left after they excluded me from my own birthday. The truth is, I never really had parents. So I will continue living my life exactly as I've been. Their reaction does not change a thing for me. Of course, my uncle felt the need to call and scold me too. I listened for a few seconds before hanging up. I was not going to waste my time being guilt-tripped. He could think whatever he wanted. I was done caring. A little while later, he sent me a text. He said my parents had found another way to get the money. They were going to use the fund they had set aside for our weddings. The funny thing is, that fund was practically gone. They had already spent most of it on Allison's wedding, and whatever was left, they blew on a European vacation. That was why they were struggling now. They had no savings left. Mystery solved. I think my uncle expected this revelation to make me feel guilty. Instead, I felt relieved that I had not thrown my own money away on them. They had spent recklessly. That was not my problem. They had refused to get insurance out of pure stubbornness. That was not my problem either. Now, they could turn to their relatives for help or deal with it themselves. I was not getting involved. They were not entitled to anything from me. Not my time, not my money, not a thing. Update 3. Something strange happened today, and I need to talk about it. Continues with Allison's visit, her manipulative behavior, and the final realization that cutting ties was the best decision.